There's an ancestry that shaped America more than almost any other, building the frontier, producing presidents, and creating its music. And almost none of its descendants know they carry it, not because it was hidden, but because these people became Americans so completely and so fast that the name for what they were dissolved into the larger identity within a generation or two. They were the Scots-Irish, the Ulster Scots, the mountain people. And if your family has been in America since before the Revolution with roots through Appalachia, the Shenandoah Valley, or the Carolina backcountry, there's a real chance this bloodline is in you. Here are 7 signs. Stay to the end because sign 7 connects directly to what your DNA test is showing you. Sign 1. Your family has been in America since before 1800, and your roots trace through Appalachia. Between 1717 and 1775, roughly 200,000 to 250,000 Ulster Presbyterians crossed the Atlantic, most landing in Philadelphia. From there, they walked south into the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, the Carolina backcountry, over the Blue Ridge, into the valleys of East Tennessee and Kentucky. By the first census in 1790, they were the 3rd largest ancestry group in the country. If your family tree runs through East Tennessee, western North Carolina, eastern Kentucky, southwest Virginia, or the Shenandoah Valley, and has been there for generations, you're standing in the exact geography they settled. That alone is one of the strongest signs. Sign 2. Your surname is Scottish or Northern Irish in origin. The Scots-Irish brought surname patterns still visible in the mountains today. The Mac and MC prefixes, McBride, McKinley, McCreary. The border Scottish names that appear at high frequency in Appalachia, Armstrong, Elliot, Nixon, Graham, Bell, Scott, Kerr. The Ulster Scots names that became synonymous with the backcountry, Campbell, Crawford, Henderson, Wallace, Hamilton. These aren't just common surnames. They're the names of borderland families who spent generations in the Anglo-Scottish marches before the Ulster plantation moved them to Ireland and the frontier moved them to America. If your family carries one and traces to the mountains south before 1800, you're almost certainly looking at a Scots-Irish line. Sign 3. Your family has a strong Presbyterian or Baptist heritage in the Appalachian South. The Scots-Irish were fiercely, uncompromisingly Presbyterian, and that faith was a cultural identity as much as a religious one, insisting every man stood equal before God, with no bishop or king between a soul and its creator. When the frontier stretched the Presbyterian network too thin, Baptist and Methodist preachers moved in with the same direct fire and brimstone style, the camp meeting, the altar call, the personal conversion that needed no priest. The entire evangelical tradition of the American South descends from the theology the Scots-Irish carried from Ulster. If your family has deep roots in Mountain Baptist or Presbyterian churches, with stories of camp meetings and revivals, you're looking at that living inheritance. Sign 4. Your DNA test shows a mix of Scottish and Irish your family history can't cleanly separate. This is the DNA sign, and the one that confuses people most. You've got English or Northwestern European on top, then Scottish, then Irish. And the family story says one thing while the test says both at once. The explanation lies in the North Channel, the narrow water, less than 13 miles at its closest, between Scotland and northeastern Ireland. The 2017 Irish DNA Atlas, published by Gilbert and colleagues, mapped a strong genetic relationship between the populations on both sides of it, going back thousands of years. The Scots-Irish who came to America were Scottish families who had spent 3 or 4 generations in Ulster. Their DNA carries both signals at once, in proportions no algorithm can cleanly separate, because the people themselves never were. They were the population of both shores. Sign 5. Your family has a tradition of fierce independence, deep loyalty to kin, and distrust of outside authority. This is the sign people recognize immediately, and it isn't a stereotype. It's a documented inheritance. David Hackett Fisher, in his landmark study Albion Seed, traced the political culture of the American backcountry directly to the border Scots. The fierce egalitarianism, the contempt for inherited privilege, the almost physical loyalty to family alongside a deep suspicion of outsiders, the personal honor code. These weren't formed by the frontier. They were carried to it from the Scottish borders, refined through a century in Ulster, and expressed again in the mountains. Border reaving became feuding. Border suspicion of authority became frontier independence. If your family has always taken care of its own and bristled at being told what to do by anyone who hadn't earned the right, you're describing an inheritance historians trace back through Ulster to the Anglo-Scottish borderlands. Sign 6. Your family's musical tradition includes old-time, bluegrass, country, or Appalachian folk. The fiddle tunes, the ballads, the modal scales, they didn't emerge from the frontier. They were carried to it from the Scottish borders and Ulster, where they developed for centuries. All of it crossed the Atlantic in the memories of families who couldn't write music down but could play it from memory. Then the banjo, West African in origin, brought through the slave trade, combined with the Scots-Irish fiddle to produce old-time, then bluegrass, then country. Every country song carries both, the fiddle in the melody, the banjo in the rhythm, met in the Appalachian Mountains. Sign 7. Your family has a story about coming from Ireland or Scotland, but the DNA shows something that doesn't quite match. This connects most directly to what your test is showing you right now. More than 3 million Americans report Scots-Irish ancestry, but the real number who carry the DNA without knowing the term is far higher. Here's the pattern. Scotland and Ireland together in similar proportions with no family story to explain it. That's the North Channel signature. England and Northwestern Europe on top with Scottish and Irish underneath. That's the typical Scots-Irish American profile after 10 or 12 generations of intermarriage. DNA communities that connect you to Appalachian or Shenandoah Valley groups, those are dominated by Scots-Irish descent. The family may have said Irish, the DNA also shows Scottish. The family may have said Scottish, the DNA also shows Irish. The family may have said just American, the DNA shows both. They all point to the same people, the same North Channel crossing, the same Ulster counties, the same Great Wagon Road south. And here's why the DNA matters so much. The Scots-Irish didn't leave records the way other groups did. Southern courthouses were wooden well into the 20th century and plenty burned, taking the records with them. Often the DNA is the only record that remains. 7 signs, all pointing to the same bloodline. The people who walked the Great Wagon Road, built the log cabins, and carried the fiddles and the Bibles and the Presbyterian stubbornness through the Cumberland Gap. The Scots-Irish didn't just settle Appalachia, they became it. If you recognized your family in 3 or more of these signs, there's a real chance the bloodline is yours. Leave a comment and tell me which signs you recognized, your surname, and where along the Great Wagon Road your family traces.